Good morning.
Thank you for being so numerous today. Just a little announcement. Please don't forget to give back your headphones. Just a little word about the foundation. It is the oldest foundation in Germany, named for the first Social Democrat president of Germany. The mandate is international cooperation and transnational dialogue. That is what we are doing today. So,
Event with three mayors of big cities who will be talking to us about the importance of integrating immigrants into our big cities, and we're so thrilled to have them here, of course. Big thanks to our partners, so the Consulates General of Germany and Argentina, the Goethe Institute, the representative of the state of Bavaria, the administrations of Berlin, of Buenos Aires, and of Montreal, of course. And a big thank you to our interpreters who are going to be working very hard for you to translate the entire event. And the whole event would not have been possible without our hosts at McGill, in particular, Nandini and Sharon. Thank you very much for making all of this happen.
To guide us today through the next hour, our moderator and prof at McGill, Andrea Campbell. She is a law prof here at McGill University. She is also the assistant vice rector for academic policies and equity, Angela Campbell. Dear members of the Diplomatic Corps, elected officials and guests, hello and welcome to Montreal, to our beautiful McGill campus in downtown.
Officials, dear guests, hello and welcome to McGill University's beautiful downtown campus. Je m'appelle Angela Campbell et je suis professeure en droit et vice-présidente.
I am a prof and adjunct vice president at equity and for equity and academic policies here at McGill University.
Acting as the moderator for this open discussion sponsored by the Friedrich Ebert Foundation and its partners, addressing the topic of social and economic development of cities through successful integration of immigrants. This is, of course, a subject of preeminent global importance, particularly for major cosmopolitan centers like Montreal, Berlin, and Buenos Aires. For Montreal, this discussion comes at a most opportune moment, as this year our city commemorates its 375th anniversary and as our country celebrates its 150th. At the same time, we recognize and honor the fact that this land has, for centuries, served as a site of meeting and exchange amongst indigenous peoples, including the Haudenosaunee and the Anishinaabe nations. We acknowledge and thank the diverse indigenous peoples whose presence continues to mark this territory on which peoples of the world now gather. It's now my honor to introduce our three most distinguished panelists, and I'll do so in the reverse order from which they will speak. So I'll introduce them and they'll come out to join us one at a time. Monsieur Denis Coderre a été élu maire de la ville de
elected the mayor of the City of Montreal on November 3rd, 2013. He's also president of the Montreal Metropolitan Community, which includes all 82 municipalities of the Montreal urban area. Previously, Monsieur Coderre served as a member of the Canadian Parliament and has had many posts at the Canadian government, Minister of Citizenship and Immigration, President of the Queen's Privy Council, Minister responsible for the Francophonie. He is he is a representative from 1997 to 2013. He was re-elected 6 times from the Bourassa constituency. Monsieur Coderre is also engaged internationally. He's the president of Metropolis, the World Association of Major Metropolises, vice president of United Cities and Local Governments United, co-founder of Strong Cities Network, board member of the Francophone Mayors, and member of the Advisory Committee of Local Authorities to the United Nations. Mr. Coderre has a degree in political science from the University of Montreal and holds an executive MBA from the University of Ottawa. Monsieur Coderre. Monsieur.
Born in the city of Buenos Aires and holds degrees from the Universidad de Buenos Aires and Harvard University. Mr. Larreta began his professional experience in the private sector working as a financial operations analyst for ESSO and later as a member of the team of the investment undersecretary of the Argentine Ministry of the Economy. In 1995, he was appointed general manager of the National Administration of Social Security. Later, in 1998, he was named as Undersecretary of Social Policies of the Social Development Secretary. In the year 2000, he was appointed to run the public health system for seniors, the biggest social care department in Latin America. He was subsequently the financial controller at the Institute for Social Security of the province of Buenos Aires and general director of the General Tax Office. In 2002, he began participating actively in politics with Mauricio Macri, with whom in 2005 he founded the PRO party. He was designated Chief of Cabinet of Ministers in the autonomous city of Buenos Aires until December 2015, when he was appointed Mayor of the City of Buenos Aires. Ladies and gentlemen, Mr. Larreta.
Muy bien, muy bien. Thank you.
And Mr. Michael Müller, the governing mayor of Berlin, was born in Berlin and attended a specialized upper secondary school for business and administration and completed a business apprenticeship in 1986. From 1986 to 2011, he worked as a self-employed printer. Mr. Müller joined the Social Democratic Party, the SPD, in 1981. He was elected a member of the Berlin House of Representatives in 1996, a capacity in which he has been serving ever since. From 2001 to 2011, he chaired the SPD parliamentary group in the Berlin House of Representatives. In 2004, Michael Müller became the chair of the SPD in the federal state of Berlin, a post that he held until 2012 and to which he has been re-elected in 2016. In 2011, he was appointed Senator for Urban Development and the Environment. Mr. Müller has been governing mayor of Berlin since December 2014. In 2016, he also took on responsibility for the policy areas of higher education and research. It's now my pleasure to welcome Mr. Müller and to invite him straight to the podium.
Thank you for this warm welcome, dear Denis Coderre, dear colleague Larreta. Ladies and gentlemen, thank you for the invitation and for the opportunity to talk about integration and the situation in our cities. Das ist für mich eine sehr, sehr wichtige Diskussion. Um Verständnis, dass ich in sprechen möchte, weil ich doch ein paar Dinge ansprechen will, die mir und die in unserer Arbeit. Ich will kurz beschreiben, wie die Situation.
Describe the situation that has been going on for a while now. We now have 4 million people, 40,000 people every year that come to Germany, and we have had a wave of immigration of migrants. About 100,000 people have arrived from many African and Middle Eastern countries, and there's always 60,000 people from these refugees that come to Berlin. So it's a city that has had many waves of immigration. So immigration and integration is part of life in Berlin. And we consider this immigration as being widely and very enriching for Berlin, but also a source of some problems that we must discuss openly and frankly. It is important to have this discussion because we have nationalist and authoritarian forces that are seeking to profit from this immigration, this integration, to build cultures and societies, divide them, and to have them go up against each other. As a modern urban society, we cannot accept that these communities be pitted against each other. So people who want to escape violence and war, who are looking for peace, I would like to thank the Friedrich Ebert Foundation and the university for hosting us here today, and I am happy to be able to speak of these subjects at the Metropolis Congress conference that is happening in Montreal, presided by the Mayor Coderre, that allows us to learn from each other and learn. The problems are similar throughout the world when we talk about integration. And we must also talk about the opportunities that we can gain from this immigration. We must mention and say that the refugees, the people who come into our city, I'm talking about Berlin here, must not stay dependent on the social safety net and must be able to build a life for themselves. And they become friends, neighbors, and create relationships with the people in Berlin, but also that they accept the responsibilities and so that these refugees become contributing members to our society. That is a sometimes long road, and we've had lots of victories, but also some deficiencies, some problems in the last few years. We've made some mistakes, especially with the Turkish immigrants. Berlin is the biggest Turkish city outside of Turkey. So we believed that the integration would happen automatically by itself, but building good relationships with your neighbors doesn't happen by itself. You have to create the conditions, you have to take initiatives so that people from different cultures, different religions can meet, can have a meeting place, and can coexist and live together. So we see that even the second and third generation are stuck between two realities. They're not really Turkish, but they're not really at home in their new country. So we have to be honest in Germany and admit that we are a country of immigrants, and we have to put in place the conditions that will allow people from other countries to integrate. There are simple measures that we can take. For example, recognizing education, recognizing foreign diplomas. It continues to be a problem in Germany. So this is an important condition for the integration into the host country. We have developed a plan for integration, and 1 year and a half ago, approximately, a plan through to transverse plan with many departments, a multidisciplinary plan with youth and different stakeholders who have worked together on this master plan to develop concrete measures that were implemented. So first, we have to move forward in education. We put in place classes, integration courses for immigrants, much smaller class sizes in our schools for the groups, and usually it's 25 students per class, and these integration groups are 10 to 12 students. We have programs to favorize integration into the job market, so that we have to reinforce these programs, and we have integrated and mobilized civil society, churches, unions, religious groups that can participate in the different communities and to speak to the young people and help them to integrate into youth associations, sports clubs, etc. We have signed an agreement with industry in Berlin We made it clear to them that we have a great potential for a wonderful labor force that they can profit from and that will be beneficial to all. And I think we can have some economic benefit thanks to the integration through the job market. Ladies and gentlemen, in closing, I would like to mention that we must send a clear and strong message. We are happy to host immigrants. We want to live together on the basis of shared values, freedom of religion, male-female equality. These are values that all must accept, all religions. So, ladies and gentlemen, integration, migration into our countries can be a great wealth for our countries, a great opportunity, but we must not delude ourselves. There are problems we must solve, challenges we must meet in our cities, and so for us as a democratic city, as a democratic mayor with democratic values, we can be in opposition to authoritarian and nationalist forces and move forward together towards success.
I'll invite Mr. Larreta to take the podium.
Well, thank you very much for the invitation. It's a great pleasure to me to share this panel with Mr. Müller and Mr. Coderre and to participate these days in Metropolis, which is probably one of the most important major organizations in the world. We share a lot of challenges with mayors of similar sized cities. That's why it's so important for us to change experiences and to learn from one another. Because today we live in an interconnected area where physical and virtual distances are shorter than ever, and most probably will be shorter and shorter every day. So people around the world are interacting and moving. So this issue of integration, of how we deal with immigration, is a very, very important issue in the world and for us in Argentina and in Buenos Aires. Because Argentina is a country of immigrants. We have always a very open door policy for immigrants all over the world. As an example, last year the national government agreed to receive 3,000 Syrian refugees, many of which are already in Argentina and most of them in the city of Buenos Aires. As you know, starting with a large wave of European immigrants, mostly from Spain and Italy, some of them also from Germany. We had a large wave at the beginning of last century. But during the last 20 to 30 years, we're having a second large wave of migration from our neighbor countries. As you may know, the constitution, both the constitution of Argentina and of Buenos Aires city itself, are very open for foreign immigrants. They have almost the same rights as Argentinians. For example, in the city of Buenos Aires, both the education system and the health systems are totally open and free for foreigners, as if they are Argentinians. There's no difference at all. For example, in my family, I have blood from the Basque country, in the Basque area of Spain and France. And most of us, most of Argentinians, we have ancestors from immigration. The city of Buenos Aires, these days, will receive a lot of people from other areas of Argentina, from our neighbor countries, and from all over the world. And it's a reality that it happens that some of those immigrants, mostly from our neighbor countries, may have a hard time incorporating on the social network. That's why it's a great challenge for the city to take account of that, and we really fully assume that challenge. And I want to give you today an example of what we are doing on that, because to illustrate our commitment with integration, I will tell you the example of what we are doing, with what we call the Barrio 31. Barrio 31, it's an, let's call it an irregular settlement. We can call it a slum, which is located in the middle of the city. It's 3 blocks away from downtown, 2 minutes walking from the president's house, from the national government's house. And it's like a city within the city because it has almost 50,000 inhabitants, 10,000 families, homes and families in 32 hectares of land in the middle of the city. One of my main projects as Mayor of Buenos Aires is the integration of Barrio 31, in which around half of the population are foreigners. So it's a good example both of integration of a less developed area and also an integration of migration in the social network of the city. Give you a couple of social indicators to show you the differences. For example, in terms of completion of secondary school, the average of the city is almost 80%. In Barrio 31, it's 30%. In terms of informal workers, in the city as a whole, it's 25%. In the Barrio 31, it's above 50%. So you see, or a most dramatic one, of young people that they are not working nor in education. In the city as a whole, it's less than 10%. In Barrio 31, it's more than 25%. That's why we put as an objective of my government to turn Barrio 31 as any other neighborhood in the city. To start with, we are working on infrastructure. Neighbors there, they don't have access both to the sewage system, to drainage, to water provision, to electricity. Streets are not paved. They don't have lighting, public lighting. We put the objective that by the end of next year, so in 2 years, working 2 years, we'll have for the whole neighborhood, they'll have the same services as any other neighborhood in Buenos Aires. That's a really tough objective that we're working hard on that. Also, we are building 1,600 homes. We are learning from the Berlin's example. I've been in Berlin with Mayor Müller, and he showed me around the social housing programs that are very impressive. And also, we are moving 1,000 families that are living beneath a motorway. So in a very, let's say, important project, we are moving the motorway because we cannot have people living behind the motorway, so we're moving the motorway. It's a very complicated engineering project, but we already launched it. Also, we are in a way to formalize all small businesses. There are 900 shops, and only 300 of them are registered. So we're formalizing all of them. And as an example, or to show our commitment with the development of the area, we are moving the City Ministry of Education to the middle of the neighborhood in a very, very modern design building. We moved there 2,000 workers, because for us it's very important this interchange or this integration with the rest of the city to have people going to work to the Barrio 31 every day. Beside that, we already have the commitment of the IDB, the Inter-American Bank, that are going to put its regional office from the whole Latin America in a building in the middle of the neighborhood. That shows commitment from the city to the development of the area. And on that, the integration of migration is very important because, as I said, half of the population there are foreigners. And the good thing of that is most of porteños, as we call people living in Buenos Aires, even knowing that we are doing a very important investment in infrastructure in the area, and knowing that most of them are foreigners, most people approve what we're doing there, showing our openness to take immigrants with the same rights as if they are Argentinians. Okay, I'm sure I will be able to show you the next year and the years after the advances on this, which is one of the most, let's say, important projects, not only in the city of Buenos Aires, but we're doing in Argentina in this new stage in our new area in our country. So thank you so much.
fascinating, Mr. Larreta. I now call upon Monsieur Coderre.
Okay.
Buenos dias, guten Tag. That's it. You know what? Very pleased to be here. Thank you very, very much. It just shows the importance of metropolis at the same time, but the importance of cities. So je veux remercier.
So I want to thank the foundation and the McGill University for their warm welcome.
English and French, so sorry for the translator up there. But it was important for me to be here. I'll start in English. We have to know what we're talking about here. When we talk about migration in Europe, it sounds more like illegal migration. When we talk about immigration in Canada or in Montreal, we are talking about citizenship. And that's important. Why? Because there is an element of geography here. You have movement of people. Let's take about Syria. When people are from Syria are going to Jordan or through Lebanon in the Bekaa Plains, and they go up to Europe, in their mind, and I spoke with them personally in Lebanon, in their mind, they will be able to come back. When they're coming to Montreal or Buenos Aires, they're crossing the ocean. In their mind, it's a new life, and that's it. They are cutting the cordon, and they say, I'm there for good. I'm changing life. Secondly, when we're talking about integration, it takes time. It's not a spontaneous thing. We have to be really careful also. And that's why we've been promoting that living together agenda, where we have a balanced approach between openness, being proud of who we are and keeping our way of life, but vigilance at the same time. Vigilance can be against radicalization, but it can be also to give us time to bring people together. That's why it's a balanced approach. Alors, chers amis, c'est sûr que...
Dear friends, the question of immigration, the question of diversity for us is an important one because Montreal, Quebec, Canada is a land built on diversity. 375 years ago, when Jeanne Mance and Maisonneuve came here, they created the city of Ville-Marie. They had something in mind. Firstly, we have to recognize that we are on a traditional territory that it belongs to the Mohawks that was never ceded officially to us. These First Nations that were here before with the French decided to live in community together.
Already the signature was there of diversity, of bringing people together, that we cannot just live on our own. This is a land of immigrants, that if we want to just think that economically, politically, that it will be it. No. We would have a huge and immense demographic turnout if we didn't get immigration. Of course, since 1967, there was some way, because thanks to Expo 67, a lot of love, but a lot of diversity there at that time, and it just enhanced that living together. So that's why migration, that's why integration are key and are a priority in cities' agenda. Not only to bring people together, but because in the next 20 years, 75% of the overall population will be in cities. So the future lies in cities. So you have a formidable laboratory where the biggest problem, but the biggest solution will be there. And that's why, first, we're talking about migration today, but through Metropolis, we will talk about governance and decision-making process. Alors, ça me fait extrêmement plaisir.
I'm very happy to be here today. We will answer questions, of course, and the fact that we have Berlin, Buenos Aires, and Montreal together sends a very strong message of diversity, but also our political strength and our economic strength. You can see how important Montreal is internationally, that we really are an international city. We are part of this circuit of connected cities that are part of the solution. I was Minister of Immigration, so after September 11th, I, as immigration minister, how instead of building walls...
How can we manage to make sure that we can live together, learn from each other, can be equal and different at the same time, and send a strong message that diversity is an asset, but it takes time. We need to learn from each other. Nothing's perfect, but at the end of the day, our DNA, our signature in Montreal is based on our diversity, and it also started through immigration. And that's why today is as important as before to talk about those issues and share with the best practices from housing, from getting a job, from bringing the kids to school. We believe that Montreal should be also a sanctuary city for those who have no papers. So we're working on that. There is, and I conclude with that, there's about 35,000 newcomers every year in Montreal, 100 per day. But if you take those who have a temporary status, there's 100,000 people who are coming every year in Montreal. So integration is the key. We put forward a new office, le BINAM, le Bureau d'intégration des nouveaux arrivants de Montréal, où on va parler d'habitation, trouver un toit, trouver un travail, et avoir des programmes qui nous permettent, en collaboration avec le secteur privé et le secteur institutionnel, de pouvoir faire travailler les gens qui viennent ici, tout en assurant, évidemment, je pense qu'à Buenos Aires, comme à Berlin, on parle de reconnaissance des titres, s'assurer que si on tombe malade, on n'a pas à prendre un taxi parce que c'est un médecin qui n'est pas reconnu, mais d'avoir très certainement l'occasion de créer un nouveau catalyseur économique en donnant la possibilité aux gens qui ont travaillé dans leur domaine qui puissent le faire également à Montréal et au Canada. So I will be delighted to answer the question and to discuss with my brothers here, and it's great to see that Montreal is relevant and that we can welcome the world. And thanks to the university and the foundation. Merci beaucoup.
Thank you very much.
To our three mayors for these very rich presentations. We'll take some questions from the audience, but first I have a question that I'd like all of the panelists to have an opportunity to answer as you mull over questions that you might have for them. So the question is as follows, and I'll ask the respondents to be the order that's reversed from the order in which the presentations occurred. So Monsieur Coderre will be first.
I'm first?
Yes, you are.
I'll be short, promise.
Making sure that immigrants settle into the job market seems to be at the heart of a successful integration and socioeconomic development plan. And you've already done this to some extent in each of your presentations, but I'd ask you to share one best practice that your administration has adopted to facilitate access to the job market for your newcomers.
Well, there's two things. First of all, of course, we believe that cities are not provincial creature, but a level of government. So we have several things in order for the future. We will have a new status of metropolis through the new legislation at the National Assembly of Quebec that will provide us some tools through a total devolution regarding housing. That's the key. You need a roof. But at the same time, we will talk about integration where we'll have one single booth. So from our own Office of Integration of the Newcomers, that's one thing. But autonomy doesn't mean independence. So it means that everybody has a role to play. If we look at the credential, the recognition of credential from the professional association, I think that's one of the key factors that will happen. We have some issues with the health professionals in certain area, but you have great story. The dentist is one of them. You can have, and we signed an agreement, the City of Montreal and all our universities and colleges on the island, so we have one single booth so we can work to provide some answer. At the end of the day, you don't want to lower your standards, that's obvious, but you need to provide some answers. You don't want to create false joy for those who are coming here, and at the end of the day, they won't be able to work in their own field. So, and especially with the R&D and all the thing that's booming here in different clusters, we will need the man and the woman power to address our own issues. So, from a training program with universities, so you have a time frame to work with the cities. That's point number one. Two, those who already have a diploma, to make sure that we all focusing and pushing in the same direction, where the professional association, that depends under the Quebec government or the provincial government, will be able to provide that kind of recognition. If you take those two, plus the program that I told you before, where Hydro-Quebec engineering enterprises or corporation are focusing to bring those newcomers and work in their own field. We have our BINAM. I think that we're getting somewhere with that, and that's providing answers, and that would be part of the solution.
Thank you. Mr. Larreta.
Yes. As I told you before, in Argentina and Buenos Aires, we have a very, very strong commitment to the integration of immigrants. And of course, one of the main aspects of that is their entering the labor market. We have all the programs we have to promote jobs in Argentina. They don't make a difference between Argentinians or foreigners. They're open for anyone, the same aspects. For example, in Buenos Aires, we are the largest Latin American city in terms of foreign students studying at university level. We have 70,000 foreign students from all over the world, and it's one of the cities most chosen by students to make a term out of their universities, one of the 3 or 4 more chosen in the world today. So we have many
you know who's number one?
I can guess.
I'll give you one chance.
Let's compete on that. No, but really, most of universities, they promote to have a term out of their cities. So there are many coming to Buenos Aires. We have a program to promote that. So in terms of jobs, going to the example of what we're doing in Barrio 31, because it's a good example, having half of the population of immigrants there. To show our commitment, I moved my office to the middle of the, let's say, slum. I have an office there, where I go a couple of days a week. And there, in my same office, we have a center for entrepreneurial and labor development, because one of our main priorities there is first to formalize all the already existing shops and small businesses, which are a lot, but most of them are informal. So we are formalizing all of that with an office there. There's an office where we offer courses to advise entrepreneurs. The entrepreneurial spirit is very strong in Buenos Aires, no? Both at the high-tech companies, but also at the, let's say, at the slum level. There are many people cooking, for example, or doing small things. And so we have this office there where I have an office. We have this labor development office where we counsel, we promote, we take courses. We have an Buenos Aires Entrepreneurial Academy with more than 50,000 people taking courses there now. So, and we hope, and we have the idea that moving the Ministry of Education there in the middle of the slum is also another signal of commitment. So the labor integration is a very important part of our overall project of integrating the slum, the Barrio 31.
Those are great examples. Thank you. Mr. Müller.
Ja, es ist richtig, dass wir glauben, dass von entscheidender Bedeutung für ein gutes Zusammenleben es wirklich ist, dass
very important to be able to live together, to have this integration, to be able to feed your family and to be able to work. So the job market is a very, very important aspect of that. But first, I want to differentiate between regular immigration we have in our city and migration of refugees, because the regular immigration, we try to offer education to the youth to allow them to have possibilities on the job market. We have schools where 80% of the youth come from other countries. There are professionals that are specialized, sociologists and teachers that are specialized in this and help in this integration to allow these young people to have some good education. For refugees, it's a little bit different. There's a lot of adults that come through these waves of immigration, and so we want to avoid that a doctor will become a taxi driver, of course, but not just lawyers and doctors who come. There are a lot of adults who have no qualifications, who are almost illiterate. So we have where we have children in our city, and I mentioned that we have these integration classes or integration groups in the schools, but we have to offer our support. We have to have a qualification program for adults in cooperation with negotiations, for example, with corporations and social groups and professional associations and the different stakeholders. But it's a process that is quite difficult, very onerous, and a very long and winding process for a few hundred of people who come to our city in this wave of refugees. We have been able to find jobs and or training, and so of course there are internships, but also this step of being able to integrate them into the job market is very difficult for the refugees. So we count on collaboration from the business sector, but it's a long-term process, of course.
So our time allows us for some questions, and I believe we have microphones right here and here at the two aisles. So if anyone with questions would like to come to the microphone, we'll take a collection of about 3, and then we'll ask the mayors to respond.
Bonjour à vous trois, merci beaucoup.
Hello, thank you for the presentation. Daisy Boustelli from Culture Montréal. You talked about integration on many levels. We talked about social housing, living together, economic integration as well. So, of course, there's all kinds of programs that are in place to facilitate recognition of foreign credentials. We're not talking about immigrants in general, not just refugees. Some of them, you said, have some very difficult situations and some literacy issues. So we documented. We have what I would like to know is we have documented in Quebec and Montreal, where the majority of immigrants live, and for equal skills and diplomas, there's problems with discrimination, systemic discrimination. So we observe that for equal skills and equal education, many people cannot find a job because they are from a different country. So I'd like to know, for each of these cities that you represent, what are the elements, what are the tools you put in place to fight this discrimination in the workplace? That's my first question. My second question: to ensure this integration on multiple levels, it requires a high level of intersectorial dialogue, so very strong governance and this work of partnership, collaboration between different services and different levels of government as well. So I'd like to know, what are the structures or mechanisms that you have put in place to facilitate this intersectorial dialogue? And you talked about the Office of Integration of New Immigrants, the BINAM. Mayor Coderre, if you can talk about that, that would be very interesting. We'll take the questions all at once, and then we will let the mayors answer. Please, one question per person.
Ich fand das überaus interessant, insbesondere Geschichte über die.
Thank you for the presentation. I found that your presentation on integration in Berlin was very interesting, and I'd like to know what the 3 cities are doing to integrate illegal immigrants. What do you do for illegal immigrants?
Okay, so I just had a small question. Like, I'm not good at politics, but basically you're talking about Hydro-Quebec. Do you think it'd be possible for Hydro-Quebec to take their technology, because what they do is like super good and the return rates are like super good, and to do like installations from Hydro-Quebec but like in other metropolises around the world? That way like they can make cuts off of that. Is that possible?
Okay.
I'll ask Monsieur Coderre to start. You don't have to answer all three questions.
You're so nice.
You're welcome.
Listen, because I've been a Minister of Immigration myself, I understand some of the challenges that we're all living, okay? And thanks for Michael. We need to make a difference between refugees, immigrants, immigrants investors. You know, there's several issues, but the bottom line is that 85% of all newcomers in Canada will become citizens. And we believe that the future lies within cities, so we have to take care of that, you know, environment. Alors, c'est pour cette raison que moi,
That is why I asked for a special status, a metropolis status, to have these tools to be able to deal with housing and some legal capacity as well, some judicial aspects, so there are victims of slums and things like that. So there's some things we can do for that. Also to work in the economic sphere with the Office of Integration of New Immigrants. This is BINAM in French. We had more than 30,000 Syrian refugees in Canada. Well, at least 25% of them came to Quebec, and the great majority of them came to Montreal. So how can we make sure that these people can contribute to the collectivity? That's what they want. So the BINAM, the Office for Integration of New Immigrants, becomes our answer, so part of the answer. So it's not easy to deal with the illegal immigrants. Of course, we have to have tools and policies in place that we see it with children, with the Minister of Education, so they can have access to schools, questions of healthcare, also issues with, I think it's a case-by-case basis. I don't think I would be in favor of a general amnesty, but I think we can work with civil society and different groups to be able to work on that. For Hydro-Quebec, well, they're already very strong internationally. If they can develop models and make sure that we can work together in this energy transition, that would be great. For the rest, I think we work together. We have the same challenges, all these mayors worldwide. We are all together and trying to define better ways of doing things and exchanging best practices so that we can help people improve their quality of life and work in their profession.
Okay, in terms of discrimination in the workplace, it's not a big issue in Buenos Aires. We have a very strong anti-discrimination law that we passed a couple of years ago, just to defend and to be very close to any even small or detailed discrimination. It includes not only the nationality, but also sex choices or gender or religious or nationality. That's the openness and to be a diverse city it's very important for us in Buenos Aires. And you know, a very big defender of this openness and this no discrimination has been Pope Francis. He's in Buenos Aires, we have both a very strong Jewish community, it's one of the 2 or 3 largest out of Israel, and also a very strong Muslim community, and they work together very closely. In that, Pope Francis had a strong, a very important role on that. And in terms of integrating illegal immigrants, as I said, the constitution, both Argentinian and Buenos Aires, is so open that there's no illegal immigrants. They all get, they easily get an ID. The only exception could be someone with criminal issues or criminal history. But beside that, there's no this kind of illegal immigrants because they all get a nationality ID very easily. That's why they have the same rights. You go to a public school in Argentina or a public university that are totally free, and you see immigrants foreign, mainly from neighbors' country, but we're having now a strong wave of Chinese immigrants too, from all over the world, and they are very well integrated.
Thank you. Mr. Müller.
Ja, der Bereich der
Yes, so the question of discrimination on the labor market is a very important subject. And of course, we look at our partner cities and what they're doing. We try to learn from what they're doing. We have anti-discrimination laws as well. However, it is the day-to-day life sometimes is different. And who controls if these anti-discrimination laws are respected and observed? It's not always easy. So we have launched a project. I will talk about the possibility of being an anonymous candidate where you present your CV so that in the first steps you can't recognize if it's a man, woman, Christian, Muslim, if it's a local resident or a new arrival. So it's a process that is anonymous, that seeks to look at only the skills, and only later on will we find out who the candidate is. If we say, yes, I want to have this candidate or not, because the skills are there. There wasn't any prior reason to explain all the history or the antecedents of the person. So we have certain quotas as well. We have the possibility of offering very good positions in public administration. For example, at the Senate, in the government, we have some good positions in public service. We have some personnel. We said that we want to have personnel from all kinds of countries. We also offer training when necessary. So what do we do with illegal immigrants? Well, we have a title in Berlin that says that nobody is illegal. What does that mean? What is an illegal immigrant? People come for different reasons. There are people who come because they are escaping persecution, because of their politics or their religion. They may be persecuted because of their sexual orientation. So for those, for example, journalists or scientists that cannot work freely in their countries, those who come to our country are allowed political asylum. So it's a protection that they receive, first of all. Second of all, these are persons, there are persons who come for economic reasons as well. And that's where we have to say, we see that we cannot welcome everybody. And I said that we are not a country of immigration. We don't have these laws, these traditions that other immigration countries have. So for this group of immigrants, we try to examine and to see. It's not a situation where medium-term or long-term people can go back home, because we are not able to integrate them permanently into our system, into our economic system, because we want to help a lot of people who are fleeing persecution and are seeking political asylum. So that's the differentiation we make in Germany right now.
Thank you very much. That brings us to the end of the time that we have with our three distinguished guests. But please, everyone, join me in thanking our three distinguished municipal mayors for sharing their insights on this most important topic.
Thank you.
So I'll ask you, ladies and gentlemen, please to do two things. One is to keep your seats, so we will be exiting through the aisle. And the second thing is please to return your headset. Thank you very much.